welcome to an NJThrives Small Business webinar. If you haven't been here before, these are weekly webinars that the NJSBDC created to help small businesses like you start, grow, and thrive. I'm your host, Christian Pichardo, NJSBDC Specialty Consultant and CEO at nilumamedia.com. Now, the NJSBDC, we're a statewide program. We're powered by the SBA and partners, and we help small businesses in New Jersey with three things. That's no-cost small business consulting, training and events starting at $0, and exclusive small business resources. Now, as we do in all of our webinars, we're going to go over some small business headlines. These are some news items. Then after that, we'll jump into the webinar. And throughout the webinar, you're able to ask some questions, but towards the end, we also have a short Q&A session. So for the small business headlines of the week, let's jump into this first one. Now, we regularly follow this organization here, Hello Alice, because they always post about new grants and loan opportunities. So this is just another one of those where you're going to be able to apply for this particular fund. It seems that the grants are up to $50,000 in support of women entrepreneurs in the tech space. So if you are a women-owned business and you are in the tech space, this may make sense for you. So we're dropping the links, by the way, into the chat for all of these news items. So you can save them and take a look at them for later. Next one here is a webinar. Actually, I'm sorry, this was yesterday. So we'll remove that. Invention Con 2022. So this one is interesting. This is from the USPTO office, and this is the United States Patent and Trademark Office that has created this convention, Invention Con. And basically, it's online. You're able to learn things, network with people. If you are an inventor, maker, entrepreneur, this would make sense for you. And last but not least, we have been sharing the information for the America Seed Fund webinars that they were holding. But on this link, if you weren't able to attend any of them, you're able to see the recordings, view the recording here, or get the slideshows. So we're going to drop these links into the chat if you want more information on these particular news items. So that is all the headlines for this week. Now, things to keep in mind. Throughout the presentation, we do advise that if you want to ask a question, to put in the Q&A box. Sometimes inside of the chat, it could get lost within all the chats. So in the Q&A box, you're able to ask as yourself or also anonymously. And number two is to complete a 3-minute survey. So we're going to send out a survey link once this webinar closes out. Once that's completed, you'll get access to webinar materials and the recording. And now, without further ado, I'd like to welcome Reina Valenzuela. She is an NJSBDC specialty consultant, and she's going to be showing us how you can take your small business global. Hello, Reina, can you hear me?
Thank you. I'm here.
Awesome.
I'm going to start sharing my screen. Is that all right now?
Yes, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing, and show is all yours.
Thank you. Okay, I am. You can see my full screen right now, right? Yes. Okay. So thank you for the introduction, and I want to welcome everyone for being here with me today. We're going to have an hour and a half, roughly an hour and a half, to share some information and ideas and answer some questions. My name is Reina Valenzuela. I have an MBA in global management. I am founder of Starfish Global LLC, a small IT company that is currently also servicing in other countries, Honduras and Guatemala. I have a CGBP, that's a Certified Global Business Professional by the National Association for International Business Trade and Educators. We also, as a business advisor with the SBDCs, I also have the SBA certified trade, certified as a trade counselor. So it gives me a great pleasure to be able to service you as you start exploring other markets. So I want to first thank you for your time today. I know you're taking time from your busy schedules to spend this hour and a half with me. And this is going to be covering export readiness in a nutshell. So it's going to be an overview, not a whole lot of details, but it will be definitely an overview and a lot of things that you can start exploring in consideration for your business expansion into international markets. So I will pause for questions if there are any in the chat, or, Christian can also tell me whether or not there are any questions. I will be happy to answer as we go through it. And at the end, we'll have 10-15 minutes for Q&A. So thank you for your questions. I always welcome them. And I also will have questions for you because I like to make this interactive. I'll have some questions as I go through, and you can respond in the chat and give me some comments. So let's get started. Why step out of your comfort zone? This is the key question for you now. If you are already operating in the domestic market, the local market, going to another country, expanding your horizons can also be very challenging and it's a scary process because you don't know, there's so many unknowns. So why do it? First of all, you can definitely increase your market share by going to a different geography. And you can also improve your profitability. In fact, companies that export now are 17% more profitable than those that don't. You might also want to explore exportations because you may have a product that is seasonal here and may have a market demand outside the United States. So that will help you level your sales cycle from the season high, to the lows. So you will have a steady revenue stream from other markets. You might also want to explore this to increase your IP, your intellectual property and brand awareness, expanded across the globe. You might also want to increase your company valuation. Again, you're more profitable there, therefore your valuation and your brand recognition in different markets also, it's more valuable for the company. And last but not least, we recommend that you explore other markets because the USA consumer is only 5% of the total consumers in the world. So the United States only has 5%. 95% of consumers are outside our borders. So why not explore a different market? Now, moving into, hold on a second. Let's see what's happening here. Okay, so I would like to perhaps get into a little bit of stats, not to bore you with stats because I really don't want to do that, but this is why exports are important. This snapshot is from the most recent report released by the U.S. Census Bureau of Economic Analysis, and this was released today, believe it or not. This morning, I got an alert, an email alert saying, hey, the new stats are in, reports are in. So I went right ahead and I said, let me look, and there it is. This snapshot will tell you that we as a country import $340.4 billion. And as a country, we export $260.8 billion. So that gives us a deficit of 79.6 billion. And that's a scary thought. We definitely consume more. We buy more than what we sell. And we need to level that. And this is the reason why there's a huge emphasis in helping exporting companies continue to sell across the globe. So having said that, and this is the most recent, I want to let you know that the prior graphic that I had in this slide, and I'm going to have to give you the most current slide, Christian, to share with the audience. The prior slide had us with, less $67 billion in deficit. So it was actually less. It's increasing year over year. So this is one of the reasons why we are looking at, what's happening here. And the trade deficit for the month, this is the latest stats as well, June of 2020, if you see how it progressed through June 2022, this year. So look at this graph where it was and how it's growing exponentially. So year over year, we continue to consume more and sell less, import more, export less. So we want to make sure that we offer you some resources so that you can make that transition if you want to, if you're ready, if you want to explore this, and that's why you're here, right? So, but this is why as a country, this is important. And I'm an immigrant, I'm from El Salvador, and I have to tell you that the immigration population is usually more open to exporting because, we come from other countries, we know the other markets, and we usually look for exports to our home countries. So it's natural, right, for some immigrants to do that are in business here and want to export their products or services. It's very different when you are US born, you know this market, you're comfortable here, and it's a scary thought to go to another country. You're not fully aware of what the conditions are there. So we fully understand that, but we want to help you if you want to make that transition. Now, what is holding us back? Here are some common assumptions that we see often, and this is not new. This has been forever. I mean, I've been since 2013 in this field, and the problems are still the same. People say, well, my company is too small to go global. And in reality, 30% of exporters have less than 20 employees. So we are more, and we do a lot more with a lot less resources. So you're not alone when it comes to feeling that way. But the reality is that 30% of these exporters are really smaller companies. Another assumption, very common assumption, is that the domestic market is secure and it's too risky out there. What I was just saying a minute ago. So the domestic market, I think the pandemic showed us that the domestic market is not always so secure as we feel, and a lot of things can happen that can shift our mindset. And it can be risky out there, but that can be addressed through some research, some solid strategies for expansion, and definitely a long-term goal and plan. Some people say, business owners say, well, I want to export, but I really don't have an idea where to begin or where to go for help. So that's why we're here. There are organizations like the SBDCs that can help you. And the full, U.S. Department of Commerce, the SBA, they have programs for exporters, specifically for exporters. So the U.S. Commercial Service, for example, has services for you to research other markets. The SBDCs have counseling services. So you're really not alone in this journey. We're here to help you as you get started. Now, let's look at top U.S. exports. That's the other question I always get. Well, what do people buy? Well, they buy everything from us. In the products area, we have machinery. This is heavy machinery, small machines, computers that are exported. This is one of the the top exporter items in the U.S. Then is crude oil and fuel products. Third, we have the electrical equipment like phones and peripherals, aircraft, engines and parts. We sell it all. We also sell vehicles, and this is actually, a little bit higher from the U.S. because we are manufacturers and we're competing with other countries that are, that have, of course, different types of vehicles. But we do export, and we export a lot of engines and vehicle parts. So we also have plastic products that we export in pharmaceuticals that, we have big pharmas here in the U.S. and we have very strict guidelines in the U.S. for medicine. So other countries welcome our exports because, we already have very good standards in the U.S. for production purposes and quality control. In the area of services, we export business services, and that could be, marketing services, technology services. My company, for example, exports technology services to Central America. You may see a lot of financial services being exported from, different, plans, insurance, financial services. And then we have intellectual property, meaning we have a patent here and we export a license, like we sell the license abroad. So whenever you have a service that you're selling and the buyer is outside the US, that's considered an export. We also have a lot of travel and travel related services, and we have transportation services as well, airlines and other forms of transportation. And we have, of course, telecommunication services. So these are the top US exports in these two areas, the products and services. So I'm going to move forward here with export strategies. And I'd like to know who's in the room already doing some indirect sales, indirect exports. So as I go through this list, I'd like you to put in the chat or the comments, or if you have a question, go ahead and ask. Indirect sales means that you may be selling domestically within the US to a company that's exporting your product or service, right? Indirectly. You are selling to another country, you have a buyer outside, but it's not your direct buyer. It's going through some other company. You might have domestic sales to a representative or agent of that foreign company. So you're going through a third party. You might have sales through an export management company. Those are the companies that, become your export department and they can sell abroad for you. You may have an export trading company that is buying from you and positioning your products and finding new buyers abroad. So indirectly, you might already be doing this and you don't know. You might be selling on Amazon, right? And selling to Canada or Mexico. These two countries are the top export partners of the United States. And in many respects, those countries are very similar to the United States domestic market. So that's why the comfort level is there to go to Canada or go to Mexico for the initial steps to exporting. In the direct export strategy, we have hiring a sales representative at the country of destination or market where we want to target. So hiring them as employees or representatives for your company, their direct representatives of your company. You might go through agents or representatives it's already a company that is established in that country. They already know the market, and you hire them to be your eyes and ears on the ground, so to speak. You might go through distributors. These are, the companies like here, they have already a market, they already understand the consumer, they already have contracts, and they position your products in those markets with those customers. You might go through foreign retailers, meaning that they'll buy from you. It's B2B, right? They buy from you. It's a retailer. They buy your products and they sell them at their stores, their locations. It might be that you're selling directly to end users, like I said, through Amazon or through some other marketplace. You might already be selling directly to them. And the most expensive form of exporting, and in this list, in direct export strategies, sales representatives are the least expensive strategy, the least expensive approach, because you're investing in hiring a representative. But going full-blown, open up a storefront in a foreign market, that is called foreign direct investment, FDI. That is very expensive in terms of, you have to know the market, you have to invest in the location, the setup, the permits, the marketing, everything. You do everything. So it's definitely more expensive. So any responses in the chat regarding if you're doing it indirectly or if you already tried direct exports? Let me see. Let me see if the chat says something to me. I'm sorry, I figured it out now where to look. Okay. Okay. Duran says yes. Yes to indirect or direct. Let me know. I just like to know if, who is in the room. If you want to tell me I already tried it and I'm in exploration mode. Thank you, Duran. If you are here to learn a little bit more. So I'd like to know who's in the room in case that, I can give you a little bit more information as it relates to your business and your operations. So thank you, Duran, for sharing with me. Now let's go to the next slide. Oh, let me clear the chat. Okay. Here we go. So this is one of the top questions I get all the time. Export licenses. People say, do you need an export license? And the answer is usually probably no. Why not? So 95% of the products don't require an export license. So in your case, you might be confusing an export license for the product as an export license for the company. A company that's fully operational, registered in the United States can start exporting, okay? So there's no specific license for the company to export. What happens is some products require a license, and I'll tell you why. Some products may have military use, some products, maybe drugs, medications, or it may be food, or it may be something that is multiple use, dual uses. For example, it has a military use and a commercial use, like knives, right? It has a household use, has a commercial use. It may have, it may be considered an arm, right? So think about the product. If the product needs a license, you might need a license to export to a specific person or to a specific country because there are trade barriers or embargoes, or the person is listed in a restricted individual list. So what you want to do is really, you need to find out if your product needs a license, which is most likely no. If the person that's buying from you is in a restricted list, or if the country is in a restricted list, that's when you are exporting, that you are most likely required to then report this and say, can I send this abroad? And that's when you get the approval and the license to send it out. So it's only necessary if the buyer or the country of destination are subject to restrictions, okay? So the next thing you need to do is check your products if they are listed in the export control classification, ECCN. And here is a great link that I want to share with you. You can find out the EAR, the Export Administration Regulation number for your product. Most products in EAR 99 do not require a license, but then you have to find out if the buyer is in, or the country of destination are in the restricted list. So what do? You go to, go through the red flags, checking these things out, and go to the consolidated screening list. So the link is there for you to actually see where, what the restrictions are. So this is a great tip for you to get started before you invest a lot of time and money. I know I've had people come to me after they've sent a shipment of something that might not be allowed into the country of destination. So they're rejected at customs and they lose the entire shipment. So definitely look into the licenses that are required for you to export it. But even if nothing is required at this end, you want to make sure you understand the buyer, the country destination, what restrictions they have on the products that you're exporting to that country. So any questions on this topic? I'm open to answering them. I can open the chat and see. Okay, I see some comments from Gloria, from Gerald. Okay, so let me see in the question. No questions are open. Excellent. Okay, so let's talk about. I'm trying to close this. I'm sorry. Okay, here it is. So what are the initial considerations? And I'm going to go through this one by one. Okay. I want to make sure that you feel comfortable with this process. If you have never done it before, and maybe if you did it before, but you didn't know, so you kind of skipped a few steps, I want you to start thinking in a very methodical way. What do you need to do to prepare? I'm going to, hold on a second. For some reason, I cannot close the Q&A. This is the reason why I don't like to open it up. So initial considerations for you. Number one, setting goals and objectives, and get, be clear about this and have realistic goals, smart goals here. I'm going to go through each of these separately, but I cannot stress enough how important it is to have a clear goal and a clear objective, or a series of milestones you want to reach as you move towards that goal. Number two, identify the product potential. You may have a very successful product here, but the potential in that country of destination may be different. The market may have different restrictions or expectations. So identify the product potential in the market of this, the country of destination. Number three, evaluate the market potential. Goes alongside with the market, the product potential. And again, I'm going to go through these individually, so we're in a different slide. So we're going to discuss that in more detail. Now, let's look at number four, study your target market. This is the same as it is in the US. When you launch a product or service, you want to know who is the target market. What do they like, right? Do your products or services meet their expectations? So the market study is important here, there, everywhere. So start thinking about how you're going to conduct this study. And if you need help with that, there are a lot of resources online that we can share. Including Google, they have Market Finder tool that is really cool to use, and I always recommend it. Number five are pricing considerations. So exporting can be, very costly. So we'll break it down a little bit into what things you can expect from that operation. Identifying the channels, the best channels for you to communicate with the customers, to position your products, to distribute your products. Now, in number 7, you go finding buyers, right? That's the big question. How do I get buyers? That's a big question here. If your company is in that position, there are really great resources out there that you can use. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in the next slides. Number 8, shipping. I have a client who says to me, Reina, I don't sell, they sell animal feed. They produce animal feed in Texas. And he says to me, I don't sell animal feed. I actually sell the transportation because the cost of transportation is more expensive than the actual product. So understanding your shipping and how that can affect your pricing strategy. Getting paid, right? How do you get paid in these economic conditions? You don't want to lose money. And there are a lot of things you can do to protect your sales and get paid on time. So let's move into each of these considerations and explore now. Number one, goals and objectives. So the first thing I need to ask you is really sit down and make sure that exporting is really aligned with your business objectives, with your overall business objectives, okay? And think about what are the long-term plans that your company has. So expanding into a new market, penetrating a new market can be very challenging. It's challenging in the US if you want to open another branch of your business. It's difficult when you go to another country. So you have to start looking into what are the goals of the company and how this strategy will align, in reaching those goals, will help you reach those goals. Then you need to sit down with your team, your management team, your executive team, and decide whether this is a good idea. And do you have the commitment from everyone? Because you'll have to spend time, money, energy, resources into this new approach, right? This new market. So you want to have everybody on board committed to making sure that happens. I know if you're a small business, you might be the one making all those decisions, but it's a good idea to really start exploring how that's going to put a strain on your team. And if your team is ready to support you in this, because you want to have a strong team here in the US and a team that's going to help you with the new market as well. So let's look at the process here. So going global, going into an international market, it has to be a long-term strategy. And can you sustain that process for, let's say, 1, 2, 3 years? Because you may start making some, gains, but it will take some time before you're fully established in that new market. So once you get there, or in the process of getting there, you will find that you are more competitive and you will have increased sales. So that's the number one consideration. Number two is identifying the product potential. How do you do this? Well, we already talked about the licensing, right? But start thinking about what if a license is required to begin with, and if there are any applicable regulations in the country or destination. And then you're going to need to start looking into how you're going to address those concerns, make sure you're fully compliant. And this is a process that will require a lot of research, analysis, and some support from different resources. And I will share more about that shortly. So when you look at product potential, and I want to highlight here product potential and the bullet points just below that, because your product has potential if it's unique, right? If it's hard to copy, if it has a unique feature that people value. Your product may have a huge success in the US market, and guess what? For foreign markets like our products and made in the US has a huge draw. In fact, I remember when I was in El Salvador, we buy Johnson & Johnson products, and of course we will look at the packaging or the bottles and say, okay, well, this is not made in the US. This is made in Mexico, or it's made in some other country, and we would think that was counterfeit. It was a copy. So we wanted to buy the one that said made in the US. So imagine that. Definitely made in the US has appeal for many reasons, because we have strict guidelines for production and quality. We have, products that are usually, top quality materials, well made and long lasting. So maybe we're not valuing our own products, right? Our own US made products as we should, but people in other parts of the world do. So think about if you have a made in the US product that you can actually seal it with that trademark. Made in the US, it's actually means made 51%, of US materials and assembled made in the US. You might be sourcing materials from other places, but the made in the US seal requires that you have a majority of the product material sourced in the US and also assembled and made in the US. You might need to consider your product potential in terms of modifications. What does that mean? The modifications of a product are required, for example, when you have an electronic product that, plugs in a regular plug here, but it might not be the same in the country or destination. Like when I travel to India or China, places that I've gone to, I had to carry multiple different plugs for my cell phone or my computer because the plugs were not the same. So something as simple as that can stop you from selling the product, right? Think about the product modification to address a specific need from the consumer at that locality, at that market. If they want something very specific, maybe you want to modify it. You might want to also look into the packaging. Sometimes the packaging needs to be modified, not just in the language, but maybe in the colors, and even some of the branding may need to be changed. So, there's a reason why McDonald's burgers in India are very different from the US, right? And why they have those veggie burgers and they're so popular in India. It's because, the beef burgers that we eat here might not be as popular in that country. So these are the kinds of things you need to consider with your product, what modifications you need to make to your product in order to address the needs and expectations of your customers in that market. The next thing I want you to remember is when you go global, think global, like you are going to expand, but also act local. That means addressing the needs of the local consumers. Otherwise, it's not going to sell. And why go there if you're not going to be able to sell, right? So I want to know if there are any questions on this topic, because I usually get questions here. And if anybody can help me by letting me know if there's anything in the chat, because when I open the chat, then I don't see my presentation. And let me know if there are any questions, okay? So
no questions.
Thank you. Okay, so let's continue here with number 2. And number 3, we recommend that you evaluate that market potential. What does that mean? Really looking at the statistics of the market, the trends in that market. Is it growing? Is it stagnant? What are the top consumers there? What are the product sales? In some of this research you can do by going to the export.gov or the Department of Commerce or even the Census Bureau. They have a lot of statistics on product sales. And of course, you might want to explore the U.S. Commercial Service that has a presence in different countries to help you with questions related to that market. So when you do your research, look at the top 5 growing markets. You don't really want to go where everybody already is, but you want to know, where they are. Okay? You want to understand what those markets are, how they are behaving, right? What kind of sales they have, what kind of products are popular there. And then you want to explore the top 3 emerging markets. Emerging markets are those that are up and coming, that are promising, that have a lot of potential, and you might be the first or one of the few that are just getting into that market. So explore the top 5 and the top 3 emerging markets and decide if you want to go into 1 or 2 of those, and focus on the top one, and then keep in your radar the number 3 and the number 2 and number 3, because you might want to be exploring the place as a region, the market as a region, as opposed to just a single country. If it's a country that's really huge, you want to then be more strategic about which region of the country you're going to target. So you don't have to go to the entire country, you want to go to the regional market. The next thing I want to recommend here is that you review the country reports. There are a lot of country reports published with data about the country and statistics, and it will tell you the stability of the country, safety considerations, market conditions. It's a lot of information, but it's worth going through. Once you identify those markets, you want to read those reports and analyze and see if it makes sense for you. Then you want to research the competition there. You want to make sure you understand who's already there, how well they're doing, and if you even want to go there and compete with them. So sometimes even here in the US, you want to do that, right? Wherever you go, you want to explore what the competitors are doing. So research your competition there. And very important, analyze the cultural factors, meaning language, meaning trends in the cultural trends, like if people are liking one specific product, or if you're marketing one specific channel. Like, you go to Central America, Latin America, and WhatsApp is big, and nobody really cares about some of the other platforms, or even texting, because they use WhatsApp. So these are the kinds of things you want to explore, analyzing what people like, what they use, how they behave. And so you start understanding the consumer. You can do market research by going to the US Trade Schedule B. If you Google US Trade Schedule B, you will see the trade databases that show you the sales of that product in that region or that country. So what is Schedule B? Schedule B are the codes that are used by the United States. It's a 10-digit code that is used to classify the product. And this is the Schedule B is a 10-digit code for the US, but the first 6 numbers of that code are applicable across the globe. It's called a harmonized code. Those 6 digits are good for every country, the same product. It will be like standardized for you to research it. So look for your harmonized code, look for your US Trade Schedule B code for your products, and research based on that. So you're not really looking at the entire market, you really are focusing on your products or services, and you're researching, comparing apples to apples, so to speak. Of course, there is a lot of potential with the countries that have free trade agreements. And, we have a free trade agreement with Mexico and Canada. We have free trade agreements with other countries in Latin America. So look at those. Those are great incentives that are already built into those agreements for companies to exchange goods and services. So if nothing else, start with the FTAs, okay? Look at the countries that are already doing business and already have agreements with the US. I don't know if there are any comments or questions. Let me know and I will pause. Now let's look at number 4. Study your target market. And with that, I mean really understanding the trends of the sales of these products, similar products, related products, complementary products that would go along with your the product or service you're offering. You might find that a competitor, an indirect competitor, is already there in that market, with another product, and maybe you have a complementary product or service that you can work with them and offer at the same time. So really, this is going to help you look for strategic alliances as well. Understand your consumer profile, and this part of the research is critical. It's critical to understand your buyer persona in the US. It's critical to understand your buyer persona across the globe. So your buyer persona is that person that is likely to buy, and you have certain characteristics that are found in that person. Maybe educational level, physical location, it may be economic status, or income levels, or it may be just different preferences and interests. So look at your consumer profiles and identify those. If you are going to sell to other businesses, look at the B2B, the company profile, and how that meets your ideal buyer. If you're selling to another company, you want to know, okay, what type of company, what industry, what is, how many years in business, what region they cover, for example, what revenue they have, how much they spend in warehousing, or how much they spend in marketing. So all those things, you might want to start looking at what those companies look like so that you can approach the right companies, because it's not like throwing the net in the middle of the ocean and you're going to catch, some, fish that you absolutely love, salmon, right? You got to go where, the fish are, right? You throw the net, even if it's a pond or a bay, you throw the net where this potential for those, for you to catch something that you really are looking for. So don't throw the net in the middle of the ocean. So marketing factors here, understand commercial relationships are different. Communicating, negotiating is very different from country to country. So it's hard to tell here a blanket statement, do this, but definitely understand what the process is. Some countries, people like to, have very small conversations and get to know you and get to understand you a little bit better as a person before they do business with you. And similarly, with understanding your end consumer. So look at the cultural factors and the communication styles. How does that impact the communication that you will have with this customer? There are U.S. government incentive programs that are offered by the government, the governments in those countries. They may have incentives. The U.S. may have some programs that help you get there. And the best way to go about that is really connecting with the agencies that can help you. The U.S. Commercial Service is a key strategic ally for you. Now, let's look at pricing considerations. So we look at pricing and we say, hey, cost of goods, right? What it costs to make, labor, and then you start looking at the overhead, and then you start looking at the exporting expenses. And here's what you need to consider. Consider the costs that you have to produce the product as is now, and then to modify it. If you're going to modify your product, there's a cost associated to that. So understand the cost to produce and modify. Understand the market demand and competition because a lot of the times the competitors will dictate pricing as well. And if you're going to go into a market and you don't understand your consumer, there might not be enough demand for your product. So you want to look into that. And your buyer, if your buyer can afford your price, then you go for it. But if you don't understand your buyer and you don't know if they're going to be able to pay or want to pay your prices, then you might need to reconsider, because pricing low is not a strategy. Pricing low is not a strategy. So look at the cost of transportations and insurance to get the product from where you are, from your manufacturing plant or your location to the customer. There may be duties and tariffs and customs fees and freight fees that you need to pay you want to start looking at what those costs are and how you're going to split those costs with the buyer. You may want to explore issues with value-added taxes, what's called the VAT, right? The VAT is, like the sales tax, right? That we put on some products and services. Same thing in the country destination. How are you going to collect that? How are you going to be reporting that? If you're going especially with FDI, the foreign direct investment. The other thing, and very important to consider, is the currency fluctuation. We know that the value of the dollar goes up and down. You want to see how that will impact your pricing over time. I don't know if there are any questions. I see some numbers popping up in chat, but I'm afraid to open the boxes because I'm going to lose the visual of my presentation here. Can anybody help me out?
Sure. On the Q&A, I have right now Neoisha,
Okay.
and she asks, what are specific resources that we can use to research the top 5 fast growing markets and top 3 fast emerging markets?
Okay, so I'm going to recommend that you go to the Census Bureau, the Bureau of Statistic Analysis, Economic Analysis, and they have statistics there on top trades and top markets. And this is, they have a lot of reports, but this is really where I would start looking at what are first you have to know which products you're gonna introduce to that market, right? Because based on that, you wanna see what is the volume of sales of this product to that market, or even the category, right? If you don't have a specific product category will do. So start researching with the Census Bureau of Economic Statistics. And the Department of Commerce has a lot of resources that can help you. The U.S. Commercial Service is my go-to organization, the government agency that helps exporters. I mean, they can help you, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. They will help you research the market, but you need to be clear as to, first of all, you have a clear goal, you have evaluated your product potential, you have a clear idea where you want to go, because they will not do all of that for you without you having a clear focus. So they have a lot of services, and I'll explain a little bit more about that because they help my company get into Central America by producing a database of potential customers. I gave them a profile and they were able to produce that. So the U.S. Commercial Service are the offices in the United States, and in each country, the embassies have the services there in country to help you research the market. So you need to really look at that. One great tool that I use for starters is the Google Market Finder. I have a presentation on the Google Market Finder, but we're not going to get into that today. But just Google it. Google Market Finder is a great tool to explore how your products can be positioned in another country, and they give you 3 top countries of destination for your product based on what you have on your website. So that's a great place to start if you really don't know which way you're going to go. The Census Bureau has a lot of information, but it's a lot of data, a lot of sometimes spreadsheets. Sometimes they have great reports with graphs and stuff, but researching can be tedious. The SBDC has a service to help with market research, but it's usually focused on the US, right? In specific locations in the US. So otherwise, I would recommend that, but we can always try to find out more information from them, from the SBDC Net, the organization that does the research for us, and they're based out of Texas. So is there another question, Christian? Thank you for that. I hope that clarified a little bit.
No questions, but would you like to get into Q&A now or in a little bit?
In a little bit. Do we have time?
Okay. Yeah, we have 5 minutes.
Okay, so I want to get through the rest of the slides and then we open up for Q&A. So The next thing you need to consider is the channels that you will use to communicate with the direct end user, the consumer. And that channel can be, your website, can be social media, it can be a distributor, right? It can be a salesperson. So look at how you're going to reach the end consumer. Find out how you're going to distribute your products in that country. The local distribution channels are important for you. So you might want to start looking at potential distributors in that country. You might want to look at the suppliers to the US government in a foreign country. They already have a reputation. They have established some connections and a clear understanding. So you might be able to connect with those suppliers as well. If you have an e-commerce site, look at your visitors from other countries, which countries they're coming from, and then start looking at the potential landing page for somebody coming from another country, because the landing page is where they connect with your company, your brand, and you want to really have a good page for them to engage with and connect with you. Even though you're in the United States, you may be targeting customers in a different country. You want to have a landing page that appeals to them. You might want to look into a third-party e-commerce platform, meaning a marketplace where you can sell and handle fulfillment. You might want to even look at third-party e-commerce sites where they handle fulfillment for you. So Amazon has a marketplace in the US, a marketplace in Mexico, another one in Canada, another one in Europe. So if you were to sell in one of those, you might be able to say, hey, fulfillment by Amazon at that country destination is actually doable. So start thinking about how you're going to get the products to the consumers, because there's nothing worse than having a sale and you cannot deliver. And this happened to me when I purchased something from Colombia. It was a handmade product and I paid for it and I waited and they couldn't get it to me. And at the end, they had to refund the money because they could not deliver the product. And that was a bummer because I really wanted to buy it. But, it happens. So be mindful of these things because they can become a problem if you don't identify this and find the alternatives beforehand. You might want to look at a supplier to a large company with international sales that they already have a channel already established, and then you kind of piggyback right at that. They already have the distribution channels in place. Number 7, finding buyers. So here's where I want to get into the commercial services. On your own, you can find buyers through e-commerce platforms and other mechanisms online. Everybody's buying online now. The pandemic made things a little easier for people to do and process, but not every country is the same. So you want to research if an e-commerce platform is ideal for you, depending on the customer, preferences as well. You might want to look into business to consumer platforms, the marketplaces. You might want to look into international trade shows to attend, to participate in, and to connect with potential buyers. You want to look into distributors and identifying distributors in the country or destination. And that may be a little process for you, but it's worthwhile fact-finding process that will help you make good decisions, solid decisions. You might want to engage with an export management company, an EMC. They actually, take care of these things for you. They become your export department, right? But they're an external company. And of course, you might want to go into foreign trade shows and present your products and services. The state of New Jersey has a STEP program, the State Trade Expansion Program, and they even have grants to help you finance participation in a trade show, foreign trade show, or going on a trade mission. So you want to look into this for your company if you want to explore these opportunities. The government programs. So Some of the great programs that I have found are here. Gold Key services are really a great service to help you identify the markets, and I mean to help you find consumers, buyers there. The Gold Key services, it has a price, but trust me, it is not maybe like $3,500, but it's worth it, that and more, because it helps you research the market, get intel from the in-country experts that we have at the embassy, the commercial service there, and you will be getting information that is reliable. One of the hardest things in other countries is really finding reliable data, because governments don't really pay that much attention. We are like big on data, right? Big on statistics. Not every country is that way. So finding, reliable and reputable sources is important. So I always recommend the Gold Key services. There are matchmaking services that they have at the embassies where they can, you present your company and the profile of the buyer that you want, and they can help you find buyers or even find the distributors or connect you with the right entities that will help you. The matchmaking services are really important, and some of them go after trade missions, right? Or as part of a trade mission. You go there, you explore, you connect, and you build relationships and start exploring how to collaborate, opportunities for you to work together. The in-country promotion, this is the one that I used. They do this. You go into the service and you say, hey, this is what I'm looking for. This is my ideal customer, and like entities, government entities, other companies. And this is very good for B2B. And they actually help you build a database of information of potential customers. And they may even help you. I know they do have that, where they help you set up meetings and connect with them. And just going into the embassy and meeting with a potential buyer at the embassy is a huge plus. I had a customer that went to Pakistan, and she was introduced to potential buyers there. She's actually exporting to Pakistan. So this is what going in with somebody that they recognize is reputable. They vet the potential customers, so you're not going blindfolded. It's really key for you. So try that. If anything else, the trade missions, you already know what that is. Again, the U.S. Commercial Service here in the U.S. will help you get started with the research. And again, the State Trade Expansion Program, the STEP program, it's a grant program to help you. And they have funds that are every year. They have a grant program. I think it's up to, last time I checked, it was up to $20,000 to help you, for example, with, you're going to go to a global expo or some trade expo that you're attending, or a trade mission, and you want to finance it. That can be part of the money, that how it's used for financing that project. They also, if you have a website that you need to translate to make sure that it's appealing to the local customers, you might use funds for that. So there are many uses for these funds, but every year there's some changes, so you need to explore what is okay to use to use the grant for, and then the timeline to apply. They usually open up applications in the fall, and they award whatever funds for the following year or 2 years. So those are my two tips there: the U.S. Commercial Service, the State Trade Expansion Program. Shipping. Oh, this is a big one, but I could have a whole session on shipping. It's crazy, right? Especially with the shipping problems nowadays, and all those ports filled with cargoes that are just sitting there, right? They can't dock and they can unload. So you want to find shipping that is efficient, right? That is secure and that is legal, because you want to make sure your products get there and they get through customs without a problem. So there are international shipping companies, the freight forwarders, the U.S. Customs and Border Patrol has a list of freight forwarders that are licensed, so don't go with just anybody. Freight forwarders can help you move all your goods and ensure your products from point A to point B, from port to port, and you may have other connections with local companies for local transportation in the country of destination. And so they also help you with not just arrange transportation, they help you arrange with insurance companies. They may help you with door-to-door, transportation and documentation, and even packaging. There are some freight forwarders that act as your warehouse, while you are filling that container. They store it for you, and when it's filled, then you ship it out. So look for those freight forwarders, and I always recommend a licensed company. Inco Terms, again, this is the international commercial terms really dictate who's responsible for the cost of transportation, the documentation, and other details. So make sure that you research that. I have a whole document just with all the Inco terms, so you know who's responsible for shipping, for insurance, and at what point, right? From door to door, or from here to the port, or from the port to the warehouse. So you need to detail that in your agreements. They have to spell out who's responsible for freight, for duties, for insurance, for customs clearance, and other documentation, preparing and delivering that documentation. And lastly, getting paid, right? Oh my God, all of that, how are you gonna get paid? I know, it's crazy. So some people offer payment options. And of course, payment options can be very tricky because if you don't know the buyer, you might want to be very careful. And if you demand full payment up front, then they might not want to engage with you, right? So there are different options there. Sell on consignment, prepaid, half now, half late. There are different ways to deal with this, but you have to do the way that is comfortable for you. And also, if you are comfortable with the buyer, if the buyer is somebody you know and trust. And again, I've seen people ship to family members that they never get paid. And it's a problem. So then it becomes a family problem. So look at letters of credit. These are agreements between the banks, the bank of the buyer and your bank, to transfer the funds when the products arrive. And you will need to look at, creating that commercial invoice and detailing the cost if it's in US or local currency. You might want to start looking at foreign exchange risk management. If the price of the dollar drops or goes up, what are you going to do about that? And how can you protect yourself? Insurance for non-payment is also such a thing. And credit insurance. The Exim Bank is Export and Import Bank. This is it's not really a bank. It's a service. It's an agency of the government to help exporters and importers actually to help you finance your export operations. And it really depends on the stability of your company. They vet the buyers and make sure that they have good credit and they finance the transactions. So you might go with Exim Bank or a private insurance company to give you, so you get paid beforehand, but they go after the buyers and collect the money. So that's that. And my next steps, my recommendations to you are to make sure you can export your product and service by making sure it's not restricted, making sure your buyer is not in the restricted persons list, as the company is not in an embargo country or zone, and make sure that you can get this product out of the US into that country. determine the product's export potential, and assess your company's export readiness. So we have a whole process of doing an assessment to see how ready you are and what recommendations we make. And I know that the U.S. Commercial Service also has that process to help you. So those are the next steps. I want to thank you for your time. I'm open to questions, and I can stop stop sharing. So we can chat. Now I can see everybody.
Hello, hello. So we are over about 10 minutes. We can take maybe one or two questions. If anyone has anything to put into the Q&A, would love to answer your questions here. And thank you, by the way, for sticking along.
Oh my God,
this
yes,
is an important topic.
That's wonderful. Thank you. Oh my God, I didn't realize I was way over time. Oh my God, I'm so sorry, but thank you for
no worries.
Thank you. I see all the great feedback here. We do have a survey, right?
Yes.
Okay. So thank you, Nyosha. And let me see. I don't see a question here, so I don't see questions in the chat. I don't see the question box either, so I don't see a question. Or one answered, it's okay. I don't see any open questions. So we're good.
All right. That means you did a wonderful presentation.
Well, they stuck around, so that must say something, right? Thank you.
Exactly. Awesome. Awesome. All right. So we're going to go ahead and close out now. Thank you, Reina, again for your presentation. I'm going to go ahead and share here what we have going on. So for those of you still here, next Thursday, so last week we had a little bit of some technical issues. Our first technical issue where we had to cancel after, I think it was 52 consecutive events. So we have to apologize for that. But we're bringing this one back. This one is the event that we were going to have either last week or a couple weeks ago. So please go ahead and register again for this if you have not. And it's Tim Peter. He's going to show you how to use data to get more traffic and get more sales to your business. So you can go ahead and scan the QR code here. I'll give you guys a minute to do that. All right. So that is all for us. We are the NJSBDC. We help 15,000 plus businesses. We help you with no-cost small business consulting, training and events, and exclusive small business resources. Get started at njsbdc.com/request counseling. And please don't forget to fill out our survey once we close this out. So again, thank you to everyone who is still here. And thank you again, Reina, for your wonderful presentation.
Thank you, Chris.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.